There's a certain kind of silence that only old houses carry. Not the peaceful quiet people imagine when they think about rocking chairs and evening tea. No, this silence is heavier. It settles into the walls, into the floors, into the spaces where voices used to live. That's the silence sitting with me tonight. The same wooden chair beneath me creaks the way it did 40 years ago. My husband used to joke that it complained more than I did. I ran my hand over its arm this morning. The varnish has worn smooth from decades of waiting for people who stopped coming. Everything in this house has been touched by waiting, including me. People think loneliness begins when someone dies, but that isn't true. Loneliness begins when the people still alive decide you're already gone. I learned that slowly, painfully, and by the time I understood it, I had already given them everything. My youth, my strength, my love, my name, even this house. Yes, this very house you hear around me. It used to echo with footsteps, running, laughing, stomping up and down the hallway. Children, my children. I close my eyes and I can still see them. Small sneakers thudding across hardwood floors, sunlight cutting through dust in the air, their voices bouncing off the walls. "Mom, look! Mom, he took my bike!" Back then, I thought noise meant life. I didn't know silence was just waiting its turn. You're quiet now. I can feel it. You're wondering how a woman surrounded by family ends up talking to a stranger about her life. It's a fair question. The truth is simple. Families don't always break in storms. Sometimes they decay quietly, like wood rotting from the inside. And one day you lean on it, trusting it, and it collapses under your weight. That collapse is my life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I wasn't always this tired voice you're hearing now. Once, a long time ago, I was a girl who ran barefoot through summer grass and believed love was something that protected you. I believed sacrifice made bonds stronger. I believed children never forgot the hands that raised them. I believed a lot of things. Beliefs are soft. Life isn't. I grew up in a small town where winters felt too long and money never stretched far enough. My father worked at a mill. My mother cleaned houses. By 12, I could cook. By 13, I was raising my younger brothers after school. By 15, I had a job stocking shelves at a grocery store, handing my paycheck to my mother because the furnace had broken and the cold lived inside our house like another person. I learned early that love meant carrying, and the more you carried, the more you were needed. That lesson shaped everything that followed. I had dreams once. College, escape, a life not measured in bills and exhaustion. I was accepted, too. Partial scholarship, partial dreams, the rest impossible. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, calculating costs until the pencil smudged. My mother said she was proud of me. Not that I'd go, just proud. Pride is what poor families offer when they cannot offer opportunity. So I folded the letter and buried that future quietly. I told everyone I'd work instead, save money, help at home, maybe later. Later is a word life often steals. It was during those long workdays and longer evenings waitressing that I met Daniel. He came into the diner on a rainy afternoon. Work boots, wet jacket, gentle eyes. He spoke like my answers mattered. No one had done that in a long time. We married when I was 19. Too young, maybe, but I was already tired of carrying everything alone. Marriage looked like shared weight, shared future, shared shelter. And for a while, it was. Those early years with Daniel were the only time in my life I felt held instead of holding everyone else. We were poor, but we laughed easily,
We rented a small place with drafty windows and a stubborn stove, but it felt warm because it was ours. He'd come home smelling of sawdust and wrap his arms around me before washing up. He'd say, "I missed you." When you've grown up useful instead of cherished, being missed feels like luxury. We saved slowly. Extra shifts, side jobs, dreams built paycheck by paycheck. 2 years later, we bought land at the edge of town. Tall grass, open sky. Daniel stood there pointing where the porch would face west so I could watch sunsets. He built the house himself. Weekends, evenings, blistered hands. I carried boards, held nails, painted walls. When the roof went up, we stood inside, sunlight pouring through rafters, and he whispered, "Now you'll never have to worry where you belong." I believed him. We moved in with nothing but a mattress and boxes. That first night, I laid awake listening to quiet that felt safe, not heavy. For the first time in my life, I felt secure. A year later, Ethan was born. Then Lily. Those were the great years. Baby laughter, first steps across new floors, snow days and bedtime stories. Ordinary happiness, the kind people assume lasts forever. Daniel strong beside me, children growing, home steady. But happiness is often just the quiet before fracture. Daniel's cough lingered one winter. Fatigue followed, doctor's visits, words like tests, concern, progressive. Chronic illness, manageable but not curable. That future shifted that day. I became caregiver. Wife became nurse. Mother became provider. I carried again, willingly, fiercely, because love does not measure fairness in crises. But children watched. They saw my father weaken. They saw me always with him, always tired, always unavailable. To them, I began to change shape. Mom became absence. The first betrayal was small. Lily fell at school one day, and I couldn't leave Daniel alone to pick her up. A neighbor did. That night, I heard her whisper, "Mom didn't even come." Ethan replied, "She's always with Dad." Not cruelty, just redefinition. Daniel died 18 months later. The house filled briefly with sympathy, then emptied. Widowhood began, loud for a week, silent for decades. I worked full-time, paid bills, raised teenagers alone, but something fundamentally shifted. During his illness, my children learned that I belonged to crisis, not to them. And after he was gone, they never stepped fully back toward me. Years passed, Ethan distant first, Lily quietly self-contained. I became logistics, provider, driver, payer, useful, but no longer needed emotionally. Loneliness does not arrive suddenly, it accumulates in unattended years. I did not know yet that true betrayal was still ahead, because displacement is one thing, erasure is another, and the day my own children decided what should happen to this house without me was the day love finally cracked into something else entirely, something colder, something that would grow slowly into revenge.
I never imagined that the child I raised with my own trembling hands would one day look at me as if I were nothing more than an unwanted shadow in her life. My name is Eleanor Whitmore. I am 78 years old, and this is the story of how love, sacrifice, betrayal, and revenge shaped the final chapter of my life. If you are listening to me now, perhaps you also know what it feels like to give everything to someone and receive nothing in return. I was born in a small town in Pennsylvania in 1948. My parents were kind people, but poor. We didn't have much, but we had warmth, we had Sunday dinners, laughter, and the certainty that no matter how hard life became, family stayed. I believed in that certainty all my life. At 22, I married Thomas Whitmore. He was quiet, gentle, and steady, the kind of man who fixed broken chairs instead of throwing them away. We built our life slowly, carefully, like people stacking fragile glass. Then our daughter Caroline was born. She had Thomas's gray eyes and my restless spirit. The moment I held her, I felt something irreversible happen inside me, a love so fierce it frightened me. Thomas died when Caroline was just 12, a drunk driver, a rainy night, a phone call that split my life into before and after. I remember standing in the kitchen, holding the receiver, hearing words but understanding nothing. Caroline was upstairs, practicing piano. She kept playing while my world collapsed beneath me. That night, I made a promise. I would never let her feel the absence of a father. I would become everything she needed: mother, father, protector, home. And for years, I kept that promise. I worked 2 jobs, I cleaned offices at night, I stitched clothes for neighbors, I sold my wedding jewelry to pay her college tuition. I lied to her about being tired. I told her I loved working. I told her sacrifice was joy. She believed me. Caroline grew into a beautiful, confident woman. She went to university in New York. She studied marketing. She called me every Sunday at first. "Mom, you'd love it here. Mom, I miss your soup. Mom, I'll make you proud." Those calls became shorter over time, then occasional, then rare. I told myself it was normal. Children grow, lives expand, mothers step back. When she graduated, she moved to Chicago for a corporate job. She met Daniel Harper, ambitious, polished, charming in the way expensive things are charming. When she brought him home to meet me, I noticed something strange. He didn't look at me when I spoke. He looked around the house instead, at the aging furniture, the worn carpet, the photographs of a life built slowly. His smile never reached his eyes. But Caroline loved him, so I did too. They married within a year, a beautiful ceremony in a glass hall by the lake. I wore pale blue. I cried quietly through the vows. Not from sadness, from relief. I thought my daughter had found happiness. For a while, she called again, then less, then almost never. I moved into a smaller house after retirement. My savings were modest. I lived simply. I waited for holidays. One winter, I fell on the ice outside my porch. I lay there for almost an hour before a neighbor found me. My hip fractured. I needed surgery. Recovery was slow. I called Caroline from the hospital. She sounded distracted. "Oh my God, Mom, that's awful. I wish I could come, but we're in the middle of a product launch. Daniel's traveling. I'll try next week." She didn't come. Weeks passed, then months. I learned how to walk again alone. I told myself she was busy. Successful children have demanding lives. But something had changed. I could feel it, a distance that wasn't just miles. 2 years later, Daniel called me unexpectedly. His voice was smooth, overly warm. "Eleanor, we've been thinking. You shouldn't be alone at your age. Why don't you sell your house and move to Chicago? We have space. Caroline would love it." My heart swelled. My daughter wanted me near. I sold my house, every memory boxed, every photograph wrapped, every trace of Thomas sealed away. I moved into their modern suburban home, white walls, glass tables, everything pristine and cold. At first, Caroline seemed happy to have me. Then small things began. "Mom, could you not leave your shoes there?" "Mom, please don't cook. The smell lingers." "Mom, Daniel works late. He needs quiet." I tried to be invisible. I ate in my room. I watched television with headphones. I folded laundry. I cleaned. I told myself this was the price of closeness. But one night changed everything. I woke thirsty and went downstairs. The kitchen light was on. Caroline and Daniel were at the table, papers spread before them. They didn't see me.
Daniel's voice was low. Once she signs the transfer, the house money plus her savings goes into the joint investment account. That's over $400,000. Caroline hesitated. She trusts me. Of course she does, he said. That's why this works. It's not stealing, it's consolidation, or managing her assets for her care. A silence. Then my daughter spoke. The child I carried, fed, protected. She won't understand finances anyway. It's better this way. I felt something inside me crack. Not loudly, but permanently. I returned to my room without a sound. That night, I did not sleep. I stared at the ceiling and watched 78 years rearrange themselves into a single unbearable truth. I was not family here. I was an asset. The next morning, Caroline smiled brightly. Mom, we should talk about your finances, just to make things easier for everyone. I looked at her, really looked. The same gray eyes, but colder now, calculating, distant. And I understood something devastating. Love can die, but betrayal does not. I signed nothing. Instead, I began to watch. Days passed. I observed patterns, conversations, tension between them about money, investments failing, debt hidden beneath success. They needed my savings. They needed me small. So I became smaller. I agreed to meetings. I nodded at explanations. I asked gentle questions. I played the fragile old woman they believed I was. Inside, something else was forming. Not rage, not yet. Clarity. I called an attorney in secret. Margaret Hale, recommended by a neighbor from years ago. I told her everything. She listened quietly. Then she said, Mrs. Whitmore, you're not the first parent this has happened to. The shame burned. But she continued, if you want to protect yourself and send a message, we can. And for the first time since that night in the kitchen, I felt something steady returned. Control. Over weeks, we moved my remaining assets into a protected trust beyond their reach. Quietly, legally, completely. Then Margaret asked, do you want to stay with them? I thought of Caroline as a baby gripping my finger, of her piano practice, of Thomas's eyes in hers. Yes, I whispered, for now. Because revenge, I learned, is not loud. It is patient. Months later, Daniel grew impatient. Eleanor, we really need to finalize your financial plan. Markets change. I smiled softly. Oh dear, everything is already arranged. His expression tightened. With us? No, I said gently, with my attorney. Caroline's face went pale. What do you mean? I met her eyes. It means my money is safe, and so am I. Silence flooded the room. Daniel stood abruptly. This is ridiculous, after everything we've done for you. I looked at him, the man who measured my worth in dollars. Everything you've done for me, I repeated quietly. Or everything you hoped to take. Caroline's voice trembled. Mom, why would you think that? And there it was, the final betrayal. Not the plan itself, but the denial. I reached into my pocket and placed a small recorder on the table. I pressed play. Their voices filled the room, clear, undeniable. Every word from that night in the kitchen. Caroline's face collapsed. Daniel went silent. I turned it off. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then I said the hardest words of my life. I gave you everything, and you tried to take what remained. Tears streamed down Caroline's cheeks. I'm sorry. I waited. For truth, for remorse, for the child I lost. But her next words ended something forever. We just needed security. Not love, not forgiveness, money. I stood slowly. My hips still ached in winter. I needed a daughter. I walked to the door. A suitcase waited, packed days earlier. Caroline sobbed. Mom, please don't go. I paused, hand on the knob. I already did, I said, and I left. I moved into a small assisted living community near my hometown in Pennsylvania. My trust covered everything. I had my own room, my books, my memories. Peace returned slowly, but revenge has many forms. Mine was not wealth withheld. It was legacy redirected. Months later, Caroline received a legal notice. My estate, the house proceeds, savings, investments, all designated to a scholarship fund for single mothers returning to school. In Thomas Whitmore's name. She received $1. Daniel received nothing. I never spoke to them again. Years passed. I gardened, I read, I watched seasons change. Loneliness visited sometimes, but never regret. Because I learned something too late, yet still in time. Love given freely is beautiful. Love exploited is poison. And dignity reclaimed is a quiet kind of victory. If you are listening to me now, perhaps you also loved someone who forgot their worth. If so, hear this from an old woman who survived it. You are not an obligation. You are not a burden. You are not an asset. You are a life. And no one, not even the child you raised, has the right to take that from you. My name is Eleanor Whitmore. I was a wife. I was a mother. I was betrayed.